Asian banks at 16%. And 4, keep the liquidity ratio unchanged at 30%. The decision was premised on the need to sustain the momentum of disinflation and sufficiently contain price pressures. Maintaining the current policy stance will continue to address the existing and emerging inflationary pressure. The NPC will continue to undertake rigorous assessment of economic conditions, price development, and outlook to inform future policy decisions. Considerations. The committee acknowledged the decline in headline inflation in June 2025, the third consecutive month of deceleration. This was largely driven by the moderation in energy prices and stability in the foreign exchange market. Despite these positive developments, members observed the uptick in month-on-month headline inflation, suggesting the persistence of underlying price pressures. The continued global uncertainties associated with the tariff wars and geopolitical tensions could further exacerbate supply chain disruption and exert pressure on the prices of imported items. Members also noted the continued stability in the banking system, evidenced by the stable financial soundness indicators, FSIs, which would further be supported by the ongoing banking recapitalization exercise. The MPC noted that 8 banks have fully met the recapitalization requirements, while others are making progress towards meeting the deadline. The committee thus urged the management of the bank to sustain its oversight of the banking system to ensure continued resilience, safety, and soundness of the financial system. Price and other developments. Headline inflation year-on-year declined to 22.22% in June 2025 from 22.97% in May, primarily driven by the moderation in energy prices, especially cooking gas, wood, charcoal, and diesel. Food inflation year-on-year, however, rose to 21.97% in June 2025 from 21.14% in May, attributed mainly to the increase in the cost of processed food percent in the corresponding and preceding quarters of 2024 respectively. In addition, recent data on the Purchasing Managers Index indicates that the Nigerian economy remains on an expansionary path. The external sector also remains stable and resilient despite persisting uncertainties in the global macroeconomic environment. Gross external reserves rose to 40.11 billion on July 18, 2025, representing about 9.5 months of import cover for goods. Global developments. Available projections suggest that global output recovery continues at a gradual pace. However, recent developments, especially the persistent tariff war and the geopolitical tensions, may continue to disrupt supply chains and exert upward pressure on the price of imports. Disinflation in the advanced economies has slowed, prompting major central banks to be cautious of upside risks to inflation. In the emerging markets, central banks continue to calibrate monetary policy to their domestic conditions, noting the persistent risks to inflationary pressures. Outlook. Staff projections indicate a further decline in inflation in the coming months, underpinned by the current tight monetary policy stance, stable exchange rate, declining PMS prices, and moderation in food prices as the harvest season approaches. Given the persistent uncertainty in the policy environment and underlying price pressures, monetary policy will need to maintain its current stance until risks to inflation recede sufficiently. The committee remains committed to the bank's price stability mandate and will take appropriate measures to foster stability and confidence in the economy. The next meeting of the committee is scheduled for Monday 22nd and Tuesday 23rd of September 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. That was communique number 158, presented by the chairman of the MPC and the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Olayemi Adesu. We now take questions from members of the press. State your medium, your name, and ask your question. No multi-pronged questions, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor, sir. Good afternoon, management team. Sarah, Achieving from Channels TV. Recently, the IMF board concluded its Article 4 consultation in Nigeria, where it commended both the fiscal and the monetary side of the economy for some of its reforms in the last 2 years. Would like to know what your assessment of that is, and then if you have recommendations as well. What the findings? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I know that Channels has been covering these matters for many years, way before I came into this seat. But for the benefit of our viewers, I think it may be important to say something about why the Article 4 of the IMF is important. Article 4 is important because you find the IMF is considered a credible institution. And whatever the IMF says, what it comes out with, potential investors, many take a cue from that in making their decisions. And by the way, let me not restrict it to the IMF alone. There are other institutions that on a regular basis, perhaps you may argue not as rigorously and in depth as the IMF would do, but there are other institutions that do similar things. For example, you hear regularly of the rating agencies. The last one that did something on Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, is Moody's. And they really had stayed away from looking at this for a while. So they did do their own review on Nigeria, and very happily they gave us an upgrade, which is in line with what others have been doing. Again, to re-emphasize, these are the things that potential investors take a cue from. Very important.